law. Okay, so guys, last discussion was about wage determination. We saw labor market structures result in different wages. We saw perfect competition was giving you a high wage or a fair wage, while monopsony was trying to give you less wage, and also the employment level was also low. On the other hand, when it comes to uh, when it came to, for example, uh, trade union through its collective bargaining was able to pay a better salary. And then we saw how a trade union generally can also bargain to give you a wage rate higher than the wage rate of sort of perfect competition. Does that make sense? So let's move on to talk about now. Uh, what if labor was, there's still people coming, guys, so just a minute. Let me just make everyone enter first and then we can start. So guys, before we talk about wage rate differential, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about what if wages were in a perfect competition market, do we have wage differential? And the answer to this is that if labor were, like a homogeneous factor, which means basically a factor that is completely identical, then what we see in perfect competition, and if the market is perfect competition, we'll see that there will never be any equilibrium differential. Yani कि if the market is in equilibrium, there will never be any wage differential happen. The only time there's a wage differential that happen under perfect competition if the market is not in equilibrium. In other words, in perfect competition, there is what we call a disequilibrium differential, where people are paid differently because in the market, people there is basically what we call market is not come to an equilibrium, which means what I mean to say here is that if you are in perfect competition, then there will always be what we call there will always be no differential, because whenever there is a higher demand in one occupation, for example, people will move from that occupation, another occupation, to this occupation. Perfect competition mean that there is perfect mobility of factors of production. So for example, let's say अगर banking ज़्यादा पैसे देगी, if banking is paying me more, I may move from teaching to banking, and I won't be there won't be any problem. Why? Because in perfect competition, you don't have a problem of with differential in wages. Different. You don't have a problem of differences in skills. Everyone is identical. So let's say there are two occupations out there, and let's say we are in perfect competition, which means that labor is completely homogeneous or identical. So what will happen as a result if, for example, some occupation has a higher demand? So let's say this is demand and supply, and we're looking at, let's say, banking and marketing. Banking and marketing are two popular professions when it comes to like MBAs. When you graduate from an MBA degree, some people would want to be bankers, others would want to be sort of would want to be in marketing, or consultancy is also another one that is pretty popular. Let's say so everyone is paid the same salary W naught, be it bankers and or be it marketing. Okay, so marketing and banking is paying the same salary. Okay, now let's assume, guys, let's assume this is perfect competition. So if you want to be a from marketing, if you want to go to banking, you can easily go, because completely identical skill set required, which is not true in real life, which is not true in real life, but we are assuming this, right? Now, assume this, guys, that there is a rise in demand in banking. Okay, so demand for banking goes up. Because of the rise of demand in banking, guys, the wage is going up, right? Because of this rise in demand from banking, guys, you can see this, suddenly banking is paying you more. So more people are wanting to work. But where will these people come from? Where will these people be coming from? Anyone? Any guesses? Where will these people be coming from? These people will exactly, Sejal, these people will be coming from marketing. So the marketing may, supply will fall, right? And so till we are not in equilibrium, you will see the wages to be different. But as soon as the equilibrium is met, and that could be short-lived, by the way, as soon as people move from marketing to banking, the in the banking sector, when the demand went up, quantity supplied went up. This higher quantity supplied would mean more people from marketing will moving to banking. But in the end, both sectors will pay you the same salary. Both sectors will pay you a salary of W1. So, in short, first thing we need to understand that under perfect competition, and there's a question that came in exams recently, which said about whether there will be any differences in uh, wages in a competitive market. And the answer to this one is that in a competitive market there will not be any differential in wages if the market is in equilibrium. But yes, in disequilibrium there could be uh, uh, wages to be different. So if you look at this, guys, this is what we wrote here, that um, disequilibrium differential in wages would arise whenever demand and supply curves shifted, but workers would move from lower income to higher income jobs until the differential had disappeared. In reality, you will not see this to happen. There are many reasons, but in theory, we say perfect competition may only see wage rate differential or differences in wages in disequilibrium, and that's why there's this. It's called disequilibrium differential. Let's talk about now. Why do wages differ in real life? Why are some people paid more than the others? For example, if you look at a football team, let's say Barcelona or Madrid, you can see people are paid differently in both the in and people within the same team are paid differently. For example, what the salary of for example, Messi is completely different from that of any other player that is in the club. They are playing in the same team, yet we know the salaries are completely different. And the reason why there could is something which we would love to explore. So the first reason why people are different, paid differently, it could be because of what we say labor market structure, and this is to do with the discussion that we had yesterday. Like we saw, for example, uh, perfect competition versus monopsony, the payment would be different. If you look at monopsony will pay you less, you know, less wages, but perfect competition will pay you better. But if there was trade union, case number 3, where there was trade union versus monopsony, we saw how monopsony was doing, or trade union through bargaining power, through its bargaining power, was able to get a better wage. You know what I mean? Exactly so. So the idea goes is that wages could be different depending on what labor market structure you are. So let's say if you are a teacher and you have a very strong trade union, you will be paid more than another sector where the trade union does not exist at all, for example. Similarly, if you are in a monopsony, then you might be paid less than perfect competition. So the idea goes is that one reason why wage rates may differ could be because of labor market structure. Okay, are we good? Does that make sense, guys? Are we good to move on, guys, with the first point? Okay. The second thing that we people are paid differently could be because of something called non-competing groups. It could be because of status. What do you mean by that? I would like to know this, Haris. What do you mean by it could be because of status? Why would somebody pay you more because of your status? Oh, okay. That's something exactly what I'm about to discuss. So, um, let's discuss what Haris is trying to point out. So Haris, sometimes it happens that you could be paid differently because of non-competing groups. What are non-competing groups? Basically, people could be in different occupations. Like for example, banker versus no, for example, doctor versus janitor. If you look at market for doctors versus janitors, can the janitors become doctor knowing that doctors are paid more? Let's say if I'm a janitor, can I become a doctor? Or if I'm a teacher, forget about that. If I'm a teacher and I know doctors are paid more, can I become a doctor now at this age? No. Why, Gaurav? Why would I be not be able to become a doctor? Because I probably have missed out on a lot of education that is required to become a doctor, right? So you need to have the right subjects to get into med school, and that then you need to pass a test to get into the med school. And once you get into med school, you need to pass those 4 years, and then specialization, and then blah blah blah. So there's a lot that goes into it, and that's exactly why the demand for doctors is very inelastic. Doctors demand is inelastic because the services that they provide are difficult to replace. They are basically the goods that they provide, the service is very inelastic in demand. Not only demand is inelastic, but it's also high. And supply, on the other hand, is also inelastic and low. And as a result of this demand and supply factor, guys, if you look at the wage is pretty high for doctors. WH means high, right? But when it comes to janitors, the demand is elastic and low, and supply is elastic and high, right? And as a result, the wage is just 1 minute, guys. Sorry. So demand will be so wages for janitors will be low, right? So guys, the idea goes this, that if the wages for doctors is high and wages for janitors is low, the idea goes this that janitors cannot become doctors because of they are called non-competing groups. They are not competing with each other. There are strong barriers to entry, and these barriers to entry are because of education. These barriers to entry are because of so many other factors that is not making it possible for janitors to become doctors. Do you guys get that? So the idea is this, that when you are in this kind of situation, that people are basically paid differently, knowing even people are paid differently, knowing that Messi is paid significantly more than I cannot become Messi because of the idea is this, that there is differences in skills, there's differences in education, there's differences in, so it's a non-competing group to begin with then. Make sense? So sometimes we say the non-competing groups are assumed to sell their services in segmented labor market, which are separated by large barriers to entry, which is caused by basic human differences. So people are paid differently because of the fact that they have different skill sets and so on and so forth. And this is a very good example of how knowing that doctors are paid much higher, you cannot still get into that market despite what you want to, despite the fact that you know that the salaries are pretty high. Make sense, guys? Are we good? Should we move on? Any questions, guys? Okay. Then comes this, by the way, the idea that people are sometimes paid differently because of human capital. Human capital means education. When you look at return of college education, the college education is very sort of Four years of college education, if you look at the return, for men, the return is roughly 17.5% per annum. And for women, on average, they can get a return of 35%. This is something which is found in the US, that men and women get a very high return of going to college. Women actually get much, much more, 35%, which is huge as compared to men. So getting education can be a reason why people are paid differently. You know, and we know this 4 years of education, you're about to sort of spend the money. This the 4 years of education, be it Pakistan or abroad, is going to be expensive. Like for example, if you go to the US, it's $50,000 times four, or $200,000. If you go just the tuition fee, add on the living expenditure and all that, you're spending like roughly $300,000 on your college education. As compared to that, when you but what's the return of that? And the answer is that your return is higher labor productivity, hopefully, and higher earning power for the rest of your life. And that's why sometimes it's something which is a likely investment for everyone to do. So what we're trying to say here is this, that when you look at returns to education, they are much more, and people are paid differently because of education or human capital. Can I have I have a question, guys. Why are women paid more, or rather not paid more? Why is the return to education, college education for women is more than men? Any idea? In other words, why do women who do not go to college are significantly at a disadvantage than those who go to college? Because less of them, that could be possible. Less supply of women, educated women, than demand. But also the fact that maybe the women who do not go to work do not have much of an option, who do not go to college do not have much of an option available than the men in the same market. It seems like if you're a woman and you do not go to college, you do not have much of employment opportunities out there than men, because probably they can do more in different jobs which do not require um, a degree. Maybe that could be a reason. Okay, but clearly men are basically the return to education for women. So if you are somebody, all the women in my class, if you look at this data, it clearly means that it is important for women to go to college than men, because the return is 35%. Return is a huge return when it comes to college education, for example. Okay, the fourth reason, guys, why people are in second and third point related? Not really, Arun. Second point could be basically it could be basic human differences as well. For example, you could be just very good actor, or you could be a very good singer. So आपके पास जो भी चीजें आपके पास आई हैं, whatever you have could be simply because of your talent and not because of your education. Makes sense? Got it, Arun? Are we going to move on? Okay, guys, moving on. So I'm saying, Arun, that like the fact that, let's say if you're a really good singer, so that's not education that's making you a good singer. But I can I compete with you if you're a good singer and you're making tons of money? And the answer is no. So the second point could be, it could be differences, that could be ability differences, that could be like nature differences, or even nurture differences, whatever differences that you have could be that. Okay. Sometimes, guys, people are paid differently because of discrimination. Discrimination could be on gender, discrimination could be on religion, discrimination could be on race, discrimination could be on any reason. And whenever somebody is discriminated, they may not be employed. The demand for them could be low. And because of that lower demand, their wage will be low. And there could be two kinds of discrimination that are identified. This is not in our syllabus, but I do talk about that. The two kinds of discrimination that we talk about. The first discrimination is simply taste-based discrimination. This is like racism, or this is like pure discrimination where people are just not employing you because you have a different gender, or you might have a different religion, or you might have a different race or ethnic background, and so on and so forth. So this is simply pure sort of racism or discrimination, we where the reason is simple taste, that you just don't prefer one kind of people. The second could be called statistical discrimination. Like for example, African American workers are discriminated not only because they are African American, but sometimes an employer would be like, you know what, this guy is probably from because he's African American, he's very likely to be um, not well suited for my organization because of some cultural factor or because of some other factors, like like not going to the right university or whatever, and therefore I may not want to hire him. So you don't give an opportunity to a guy just because he is African American. Not that you hate African Americans, but you just simply feel like they may not be good for your organization, because the kind of people that are African American are not well suited for that role. So it's in a way you are kind of like um, using his race or sometimes gender, or to make a judgment about that person, and so on. So, for example, women are discriminated in the labor market because whenever you are like, okay, if I hire this woman, what if she leaves the job for raising family, or for example, for what if she gets married and do not come back to labor market? Now, this is an assumption we make based on the data that is out there. But in reality, that woman might not be wanting to sort of leave labor market, so you're discriminating all women because you feel that you're discriminating against that woman because you feel the group is going less likely to work. It's some kind of a mindset. Yeah, it's some kind of a preconceived notion that you have for the group. You don't hate them, but you feel that the data suggests. And by the way, you might not be wrong. The data might suggest that a lot of women might take maternity leave and may not come back, and so on. But that may not be true for all. And if you base your decision on all, you might end up hurting these people. Okay, so if I look at if I look at demand and supply, if I look at demand and supply, if I look at demand and supply, and this is your wage and quantity for, let's say, like uh, men, right? And this is your wage. So this is your men and this is your women, right? And let's say male workers are preferred over female workers. So demand for male workers will be high and demand for female workers could be low. And if that is the case, then male workers will be paid much more, like W high, while women workers will be paid W low. Are you all with me? Does that make sense? So the idea goes this, that the discrimination can make one sort of set of people to have a higher wage than another set of people. Are you guys with me? Does that make sense? So that's the reason number four. It could be simply uh, it could be simply discrimination taking place. Make sense, guys? Uh, it isn't perfect competition. So what do you mean by perfect competition? I mean, men and women can do the same job, but I'm saying the idea goes यहाँ पे कि अगर कोई एम्प्लॉयर है वो कहता है मुझे मेन चाहिए अपनी और वुमेन नहीं चाहिए, तो डिमांड मेन की बढ़ जाएगी और वुमेन की डिमांड गिर जाएगी. So demand for men are going up, and demand for women are going down in this market. So higher demand for men would mean higher wages for them, and lower demand for women means lower wages for them. Got it? Okay, guys, the last factor, and then we get done with the class, is basically sometimes you're paid differently due to the nature of the job. You know, the nature of the job could be such that you're paid differently because of the fact that they could be risky. You know, it could be risky, or like it could have the quality of job is low. Like for example, those workers who work in offshore oil rig company, or like those who fight a war, for example, could be paid differently. So the idea goes is that you can be paid, or for example, if you're somebody who's coming to Pakistan, sometimes a lot of foreign CEOs ask for compensating differential. This is the salary difference that you get because you are basically doing a risky job. Makes sense? Or night shift? Yes, exactly. Night shift could be paying differently. Does that make sense, guys? Are we good? Any question? Yeah, overtime is something which people can be compensated for as well. So, guys, these are the reasons why people can be paid differently. It's a very popular exam question. Why are some people paid more than the others? And so, please prepare that. And I am done, guys. Have a good one. Take care of yourself. This first slide of the day, I can open my friend. Why not? This is the first slide of the day, or first page of the day. You want to take a picture or something? Is this what you want? Bye bye, Muhammad Ali. Take care. Bye bye, everyone.